Nice work on the engine.
Alright, so why the name EV? And that's a good question. There's a number of different reasons why, and I'm not going to go into one of them, but the overarching reasons why this channel is named EV is because one, from just a simplicity factor. I mean, if I'm going to be on the radio, and this is a sailing yacht EV, Echo Victor, calling whatever boat, right? It's simple. Number two is electric vehicle, guys. Now, electric vehicles and sailboats is a new thing. A lot of the new really expensive yachts are electric, hybrid or primary electric, and to me, I'm very fascinated. I've always been into electronics. Now, I've made my own little PCB boards and you know, messed around with breadboards, and I understand quite a bit about voltage and current and amperage. And to me, it's fascinating. I'd love to be able to have the resources and the funds to explore that a little more. I mean, originally I thought, you know, I'm gonna put a forklift engine in this boat and run it off a generator. You know, I had a bunch of different ideas, and the reason why I didn't pursue any of those ideas is strictly from the monetary perspective. I mean, you know, it would tie up a lot of my time in the marina. If I did have that sort of time, sure, maybe I will in the future, but you know, I want to get out there and go sailing. That's what I want to do. I don't want to screw around with electronics. You know, electronics can be very time consuming, expensive, and frustrating things to understand and to put together. But for me, like, you know, I like to watch videos where it's guys taking apart mass spectrometers or any electrical equipment and tear downs, that sort of thing. That's one of my favorite YouTube experiences, is looking at how these things are built. So the whole reason why this boat isn't electric and it has a diesel engine is primarily because, I mean, I was raised on diesel engines. My dad worked on oil, you know, worked on these huge ships that would transfer oil, and he worked with the really big, you know, two-stroke diesel engines, the massive thousands of horsepower ones. And he kind of instilled in me a basic understanding of diesel engines earlier on. Like, I used to play with RC planes and RC cars and model trains, that sort of thing, when I was a kid. So I was raised on electronics, essentially. But diesel engines are just, it's only been recently that I've fallen in love with diesel engines, especially the one that I have here. And that's why I thought it would make a good intro to this video. You know, they say you buy an engine and you get a sailboat with that. That's partially true, and I mean, in this case, I don't think it's the case, because this boat had so many awesome things with it. You know, it had the Davit system, it had the solar panels, it had the full charging systems, MPPT controllers, and all that, which I love. I'm fascinated with that. And this essentially, this boat is an old boat, right? So anyway, the diesel engine that I have is a Yanmar Q2 M20, and when I first bought it, it was just black, you know, and I'll try and show a picture of it there. And the reason the engine was black and anything in the engine room was black was because I had an exhaust leak. It was a very small exhaust leak, so soot had covered everything. And I didn't pay too much attention to the engine because it functioned fine. When I remember that we were on the hard on this boat, and I was sitting with the owner, and he turned I'm sure he may have started it, but this was like at the beginning of the season, where it probably would have been the first time he started the engine, and it boom, powered right up. And I was like, oh, that's great news. You know, my dad will like that. Because my dad's instilled in me that the engine is the most important thing on a sailboat. And he is right. There's no doubt about it. I mean, sailing, most 90% of the time, you got the sails up, you're heading in one direction. But when you really need to get out of somewhere, you need an engine that will work when you turn the key. And will continue to work with minimal maintenance for a long amount of time. Now, I always felt as if this engine was underpowered for some reason, and it kind of got worse over the last 2 seasons, and then at one point I knew there was something wrong. So when I had the rudder rebuilt, the guy was like, dude, you have an exhaust leak and you need to fix that. And so I did fix that. There's a video about that, and that seemed to clear the soot problem up. But it also introduced a number of other problems. The elbow on a diesel engine, it mixes seawater with exhaust gases just to actually quiet down the whole process and to give it back pressure. And there was something going on there that wasn't right. And there still is something that's going on. I still have to replace the exhaust elbow on this engine, but the engine is good. Now, I replaced the head gasket. I did a valve job. You know, I looked through all the components of everything, and everything seemed to be fine. When I reconnected it up, now the engine runs flawlessly. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to start the engine. All right, let's do it. All right, so this is the Yanmar 2QM20. Now, originally this engine room was covered in weird material. I replaced the material with this silver board, which is strictly an attempt at reducing the amount of noise that the engine makes. I took the complete head right off and replaced the head gasket. I went through the fuel system, replaced all the filters. This was originally back there, and I've moved it up here. This is the water separator, and I did that just for convenience. I've also repainted everything. Right now the alternator's not on, and that's not a big deal because that's being worked on right now. It's a very high amperage alternator that I had on there, 140 amps, guys, and that's unreal amount of amperage for a 20 horsepower diesel engine. So let's it's minus temperatures outside today, and I'm assuming that it probably will take a few cranks to get it started, but let's give it a try. All right, the engine's really cold. I do have a heavier weight oil in this engine right now. Look at the snow coming in. I am going to use quick start. It always, just a couple squirts of it is all you need. Contact. All right, so as you can see, it's a pretty good running engine. She starts up really well. When she's warm, she starts up right away. So what have I done to this engine? Head gasket change, valve job, repainting, new fuel filters. I changed the position of this water separator. I did an oil change, multiple oil changes. Originally what happened was I found water in the oil. So the water in the oil indicated that there was some sort of leakage between the cooling system and the heat exchange. So I cleaned all the fuel lines out, polished everything, I gave it lots of love, and it's totally paid off. Now that I know this engine, I have the manuals, I have the the tools to fix it. I love this thing, and I can see why people choose these engines. This thing is super efficient. I've also, what I've done is way back here, as I've changed the position of this battery, I made a battery bridge here, and that's now secured in there really well. Also took the fuel tank out and cleaned it out, you know, and that took forever. I mean, it was a full fuel tank, but there was lots of water and dirt in there. I emptied that out, or I must have dropped like $100 in diesel into the oil tank out there, just because it was contaminated, and fully cleaned the tank out and replaced all the fuel lines that run to the engine. And I'm really confident that this engine is gonna be able to see me through some serious long distance sailing. If something went wrong with this engine, I know how to fix it. I also have all the spare parts that I need for this thing, all the spare fuel filters and oil filters, and once I get this alternator problem solved, this engine is gonna be perfect. So basically, I thought that would be interesting for you guys to see, you know, how it went with all of my work that I did on the engine here. I was really hoping the temperature would be above 0 right now, but we did have some warm temperature briefly, but it's gone down. So it is supposed to warm up in the next week or two, and then we're gonna get out there and do some sailing. All right, I hope you found that video interesting, guys. Give me a thumbs up, like, and we'll see you in the next one.